What's up, everybody? It's Esoteric Nomad, and I am back with some more thoughts. So I wanted to talk about a concept that's been following me for quite possibly my whole existence, but for the time that I've been conscious and aware of this concept and really been trying to integrate it into my life and peeling back more and more layers of it, it's just been recently. I don't even know the time limit, really, maybe within this past half a year, past 6 months or so. And the concept is surrendering. Now, when I say surrendering, I'll tell you before, what my idea of what that was. Before, years ago, like I said, even let's go back as far as the beginning of last year, because so much has changed even from then in my world. And if you would ask me what surrendering was at the beginning of last year, or how I would have interpreted that, would have been to just not care. To just not give a fuck. To not care about something. Just shrug it off. I surrender. Throw up your hands. It is what it is, whatever. And I had a very sort of defeating attitude that was attached with that. I didn't quite realize that surrendering as I know it now, doesn't come from a place of necessarily defeat or, I'm just giving up, or a fuck it apathetic attitude. It comes from a place of full trust and faith. Now, don't get me wrong, other emotions can accompany that, apathy, I'm not saying that it's only that emotion, but I'm definitely approaching it from a new standpoint of full trust and faith rather than defeat or apathy. It comes also from a realization of another realization. I say another because let me not say always, for a while I've known that I have no control over anything outside of myself. It's my belief that none of us have any control over anything outside of our own actions, outside of what our physical bodies, and our thoughts and that. Not our thoughts. We don't have control over our thoughts necessarily, but our actions rather. Now that's my personal belief. And if you think about it, we think we have control over a lot. We do. We have a lot of influence over things. But influence is not control. Control, as I know it to be, is being able to have an executive decision, the final say-so in every aspect. Sorry, y'all, I dropped my phone. Control is being but being capable of having executive decision over something entirely. That's how I would define it. So let's see, we, like I said, we don't control our thoughts, but let's say I'm getting pissed off in traffic and the person in front of me is driving really, really slowly. Now, I may not have control over my irritation that's happening, I'm just like, oh my God, I'm starting to get frustrated, this and that. But I do have control over my actions. Now, I could lean on my horn, I could swerve around aggressively, I could flip off the driver in front of me, I could do a number of things, right? I have control over my actions, but not necessarily the thought, the frustration that, often precedes the action. And that's what I mean. When I think about surrendering now, it comes from another layer of understanding that I have no control. And let me just tell you from my personal experience, most of my life I had adopted a sense of anxiety and worry. And I know for myself, the anxiety stemmed from a place of wanting to control something or not having control of something. But in that, if I would have been able to realize then that not only do I not have control, but I can't have control over so many things, I feel like that would have helped my anxiety levels, because I believe for myself, the anxiety came from, like I said, a perceived idea, an expectation of I should have control, or, oh no, I don't have control, so I'm going to freak out. So yeah, And now, in this present day, I am choosing to trust and have faith in a lot more things in my life. And it's difficult. It's difficult, right? Like I feel like in today's culture, fortunately, I feel like a lot of people are coming around to these concepts of surrendering, expressing gratitude, self-love. These all sound like wonderful and beautiful concepts, but there's not always a lot of relatable information as far as how to. And not to say that would even necessarily be beneficial, because you can tell someone how to do something all day, and depending on how that person learns, depending on how that person is meant to go through this incarnation with the, the lessons they're meant to learn, this and that, it still may not be it may not have any consequence that, you can tell someone how to do something. We see this, I work with kids and I see this daily. I remember being a kid myself. So many things were told to me, and I just had this idea of, honestly, I don't even really recall what my conscious thoughts were in those moments that I was being given guidance. A lot of it I didn't agree with intuitively for myself, but I know a lot of things I was just rather rebellious, and I had a very, well, that was your experience, it's not going to be mine type of attitude. And, it's just because I was meant to learn in that way. Now I have adopted a new narrative in my present life that I no longer want to learn by way of hardships or extreme circumstances, because that's just a belief. That is just a belief. And I'll get more into a podcast about sort of pre-programmed beliefs we all have, because they go really deep. There's so many pre-programmed beliefs that we don't even recognize. Like, the next time you do something and you feel like, well, this, and like, ask yourself why, first of all, like, why am I doing this? And then ask yourself, like, where did you even get the idea that you had to do this? Where did that stem from? And is it like, there's so many people who are, branching off into entrepreneurship, being self-employed, finding ways to make income, to support themselves, that don't revolve around a sort of 9-to-5 job, right? Many people are showing this is possible. And whereas, I don't know how many years ago, but a while ago in our history, no, you had to get a job. You had to go get a job, or like the man of the house went and got a job. You had to clock in and clock out, get a paycheck, all that good stuff. That was how you brought in money. Not to say there weren't pioneers and innovators and people, self-starters back in the day. Not to say that wasn't the case, but I know the primary culture was the corporate world. Like, you go out and you earn your money, and that's how you support yourself. And now we're finding new ways to do that, right? Like, everybody knows that this is a possibility. There's TikTok influencers. There's people who are making income and supporting themselves in amazing ways, creative ways. So we know that we no longer have to abide of this template of, well, I have to go to work and have to clock in and blah, blah, blah. That would probably seem silly if we came across somebody who was like, oh no, you have to do it this way. You have to go to work. You have to. We'd be like, no, you don't. You can do it. There's so many other ways, But back then, if you were to approach somebody and say that, it probably would have looked at you like you were crazy. And that's sort of what I mean about a lot of program beliefs. Recently I was speaking to somebody who was saying how they had to sort of change how they spoke to people, certain people, how they conducted themselves. They had to watch their mannerisms and this and that around certain types of people. Otherwise they would scare them, or they would come across as intimidating, that sort of thing. And in my mind, I'm thinking, you don't have to do that. Now, I'm not sure if that person was ready to hear that message, and so I did not choose to share it at that time. But I feel like that's a good example of sort of like, we sort of use these past things that have happened with us, and they might have been traumatic. And I'm not trying to dismiss, something traumatic that might have happened to you as like, oh, you're choosing to, no, I'm not trying to dismiss that. I'm just saying, like, we have to be careful and mindful of what beliefs we're taking away from that experience, and how much control, once again, we do have over how we move forward. We don't have to sort of submit to these past ideas and ways and methods of doing things just because there was a moment in time where this or this happened, even if it happened a few times. Just because something has happened 50 times doesn't mean it's going to keep happening. We hear that, I forget who it was that, the light bulb, tried so many times to make it, but it was like, all you need is one right time. I think the quote has something about like, I figured out so many number of ways how not to do it, but if they would have stopped at the second or third time, well, all these other times it didn't work. Well, that doesn't mean you can't keep trying. I'm getting off on a tangent. I told y'all, you got to bear with me. But when it comes to control, it's a duality. We do have control and we don't. It's one of those like things that I coin it Mr. Miyagi type shit, because it's for any of you who are familiar with the Karate Kid, it's an interesting and it can often be a challenging concept, but even that in itself, what I just said, as far as it can be a challenging concept, that is a belief that I don't have to adopt. I don't have to choose to believe that. When they say, oh, it's as easy as a choice, for those of you who have heard this, like everything is a choice. Now, we don't always have control over the things that have happened to us, but we do have far more control over what we choose to do after. And in that, now it might be hard, it might be difficult, it might be painful, but we do have a choice on a lot of things after the fact. But with surrendering presently for me, I think it's linked with the whole idea of having programmed beliefs and the things that I am no longer choosing to believe. And I am choosing to believe that everything's going to be okay. Now, I'm not negating my responsibilities. I made a TikTok video about this a while back last year. If you haven't followed me on TikTok, you can do that. I suggest that. You don't have to, but if you feel guided to, go ahead and check me out, Esoteric Nomad. I have a video on there somewhere. I don't have many, so it shouldn't be hard to find. But I talk about, and I lost my train of thought. I was talking about surrendering, giving up control. Oh, all right. Well, that's fun. That's great, guys. So I lost my train of thought. Okay. Well, with surrendering, I'll just start a new train of thought. I'm realizing I am choosing to believe that everything will be okay. We'll go back to that thought. Because I don't have control over anything. I'm doing what I can do, right? Well, a lot of us are doing what we can do. We're doing what we do have control over. I'm going to work. I'm working my hours. I'm paying my bills the best I can. I am watching what I spend. I'm doing what I can. Now, in the past, I would have probably still been worrying because things are tight. A lot of us are, especially if we live in Denver, like, let's be real, it's challenging. I don't want to choose to believe that it is. The economy in Denver it's high, it's steep. So I'm believing that one day it will not be that way for me and I will be just fine and comfortable. In this present moment, and in my past circumstances, it has been a sort of paycheck to paycheck type of reality. And I am, not ashamed to say that. That's the reality for many of us, really. But there's no point in me worrying, right? Because I'm doing what I can. And it's far easier to sort of surrender to things when you're helping yourself to the best of your ability. Now, that's why I say you can't just fuck off. I can't just be like, oh, I'm not going to go to work, and just have faith and trust that things are going to miraculously be okay. Now, I do believe in miracles. I do believe in divine intervention and all these things. I also believe in co-creation. And I believe that we have to take a couple of steps ourselves. And then, the universe, God, source, however you choose to identify with it, will take a couple of steps forward on our behalf. So it's sort of a co-creation. It's like a dance, we have to help ourselves. But in that, I feel like if we are doing what we can to support ourselves to the best of our ability, it is far easier to surrender. And when we do choose to do that, now, if you do it in any capacity to whereas before you couldn't, that's growth, and the universe will conspire on your behalf. So you will be blessed. And I'll talk in my next podcast or in an upcoming podcast about how that actually manifested in my life at the start of this year. It was quite amazing. But I wanted to get on here real quick and share those thoughts. Weigh in. I'm working on a blog, but in the comments on any of these platforms, let me know. Message me on social media, guys. Let me know how you're practicing surrendering in your life right now. Is it easy? Is it difficult? What are your obstacles? Yeah. So yeah, everybody, stay safe out there in these cosmic streets, keep your vibes high, and stay tuned for more uploads. Later.